Welcome to E39 Source. Today, a DIY on oxygen sensors on a 2006 BMW E60 M5. It's very similar to the E39. It's a little bit more challenging. I think we've done an E39 video. So today we're going to do the E60. Let's talk about parts here. Let's just focus on these. This is all other stuff that's going on. There's 4 oxygen sensors on the V10. So there's 2 before the cats, 1 on each bank, and then 2 after the cats. Again, 1 on each bank. So you're going to need 2 of one part number and then 2 of the other. These are Bosch. They're not the genuine BMWs per se. BMW does use Bosch as a parts supplier. These are a fraction of the cost of the ones that are branded as genuine BMW, but the same part. So the part number, the Bosch part number for these is 15339, and Amazon seems to be a great place to pick them up. They've got the best price and they show up 2 days later. So you'll need 2 15339s. And then you'll need 2 17051s, totaling 4 sensors. Whatever way works for you to get under the car is great. We've got a lift, we're a little lucky. If you want to jack the car up, just use the jacking points as such. You can use the rear differential fins if you have to, put a piece of wood there. And then in the front, somewhere this little pad represents your front jacking point. Be sure to check the description below to see a product link and part number for this part from ECS Tuning that seamlessly fits up inside of your BMW's jack pad adapter to work on a lift, jack stands, or hydraulic jack. So once you get access to the underside of the vehicle, there's actually a good bit of disassembly. The front of the car is that way, so we're looking from the back to the front. We can actually see the post-cat sensors right there. And this one's a 2006, a late 2005 build. This is actually the 34th E60 M5 ever built for the US market. So it has additional sensors there. Just like the early E39s, it has exhaust gas temperature sensors. I'm not sure why. They got rid of those on the E39 years ago because the O2 sensors can do the temperature as well, but then they added them back in 2006 for the M5. It's stupid. We are going to have to remove them to get them out of the way. It's very simple. But firstly, really before we do anything else here, all of this plastic needs to come down. And it's going to be this piece that's held on with 2 Phillips, 8 mil, 8 mil, 8 mil, 8 mil, all the way around. We do not need to remove the front engine cover, just this center black piece. So I'm going to put an 8 mil on a drill and we'll pull that down. So the panel comes down like that. There's a couple 8 mils in the center too, but they're all black 6.8 millimeter heads. I didn't count them, but there's a lot. Go around the whole thing. It comes down, gives us a little bit more room. We also do need to remove the skid kind of guard, skid pan shield here, which is going to be held on with, I think there's 17s, there's 5. This corner, front corner, the center, that corner, and that corner. With the skid protection pad out of the way, we've almost got full access now. Need to remove a little bit of heat shielding and our exhaust temperature sensors on this car since it's an early model. It's a 17 mil on the EGT. I just put a open-ended wrench on it, gave it a whack, and it actually came out pretty well. But we need to remove these pieces, and I've already half done that. That's why it's so loose. There's an 8 millimeter bolt right there, and then there's going to be another one up here kind of on top of the oxygen sensor where it's difficult to get. So you may want to use a U-joint on a socket. It's going to be the exact same thing on the driver's side, but let's just remove these little heat shields. I was able to get those 10 millimeter nuts actually. The rear screws are 8s, the front nuts are 10s. So I pulled those out without a U-joint, just used a very long extension, came in at an angle. Those things came out pretty easily. You have to wrestle the driver's side one down a little bit. This stuff bends all day if you want it to, but try not to bend it too much because then reassembly will be a problem. If you have the temp sensors, again, 17 mil open-ended wrench, knock them loose and then unscrew them and let them hang. The passenger side, and the passenger side only for whatever reason, was zip tied to the oxygen sensor wire, so I just cut that. And now we're ready to go ahead and put a wrench on the oxygen sensor. That's a 22 millimeter or a 7/8, and knock these post-cats free. That's going to be easy. The problem gets into the pre-cats. Catalytic converters are right here, and if you notice, your front sensors are way up, almost out of view, way up there, facing directly up. There's no way to get them from the top, so we're going to have to get very creative. We're going to look at bank 1 here. So as I've said already, the temp sensor comes out. Now we have the oxygen sensor that was originally right here. What I did was just take some wire cutters, some side cutters, cut the wire right off the top of it. If, you know, once you've broken it free and you're gonna spin it a whole bunch, it's a pain if the wire's still connected. So I just cut the wire off, took the sensor out. Now you've got to disconnect the wire. So the wire is in this little block right here. Maybe we'll have more light on the driver's, or on the passenger side, we do. It's this, in this little bank. This is probably the other sensor. I'm not sure which wire that is. But it clips in. It's in this, this is the connector. It only goes one way, so you can't mess it up. Pop it out of the little tab, and then there's two little releases that you just stick a little screwdriver or pick tool in and pry the fingers apart and then wiggle the connector off and you're done. And the old sensors on this car are original at 100,800 and change miles, and they look pretty crusty. Then on the connector, these are the little tabs I'm talking about. You just have to pry those outwards and then wiggle it off the part that stays in the car. So we tried the crowfoot method. That did not work in the least. So we actually came over here and we had pulled the wheels off anyways because they're about to get refinished and new front tires. The fender liner's out because it's shredded and we're replacing it. You don't need to remove the entire fender liner. You do need to remove your wheel. It's 5/17 mils. If you've got a lift like this, you probably want to break them free down on the ground and then raise it and lift it. You do need to remove a small piece of black trim that's held on with a couple 8mm bolts, the same ones that held on this original black pan. Take that off. It slides around your tie rod and wishbone and sway bar and links and all that. And that gives you some access to this little triangle here, the magic triangle. And then we can see that bung up in the exhaust where the sensor lives. And this is the angle that works. So what I ended up doing was using an open-ended 22mm wrench, kind of at an angle, not ideal. Put it on there, a couple taps with a hammer, it did turn loose, and then thread it out by hand. Now it's a little bit more challenging than that. You see that clip up in there that's kind of open. That's a spring clip where the wire was, so I needed a long hook tool to reach up there, get behind the wire, and pull it down out of that clip. And then once I was able to do that, I was able to wedge some small side cutters in there, cut the wire off, and thread the sensor out by hand. So this was our post-cat O2 sensor wire. Our pre-cat is a completely different shape, and it goes into this transmission bracket right here. And it's got a tab on it like any other BMW. You press the tab and wiggle the two wires apart. And there's how you get your pre-cat O2 sensor out. Now we're gonna have to do the same thing on the passenger side, removing this lower piece of trim and going in from the angle, and I'll let you know if anything else changes. Passenger side, as you can see, we've got the fender liner still in place. We removed the bottom part. It was a total of 3 8mm bolts, and then it kind of wiggles out of there. So that gives us access to the triangle. We can come over here. Maybe if I can fit the camera in there without blocking the light, we can find the oxygen sensor right there. Yeah, that's about as good as we're gonna get. It's in and out of the light right there. So I'm gonna try the same thing with the open wrench and the hammer. See if we can tap that one loose too. All right, we're done. We're coming in at about a little bit less than 2 hours with the lift. I've never done E60 M5 O2s before, but it's not horrible. These post cats are just super simple. I replaced, after I installed the new sensor, I replaced the zip tie up top that keep the oxygen sensor wire and the temp sensor wire together. So do that. And then when you tighten this down, this 17 mil on the temp sensor, should you have it, I just made sure that it was pointed directly straight up so it would mate with the O2 sensor wire. On the driver's side, same thing, but it's got a little clip. You don't have to do the zip tie. So that's kind of nice. Installation of the pre-cat oxygen sensors was the most difficult, as expected. You can cut the wire when you take it out. You can't cut the wire when you put it in, obviously. So I just put it up in there and started threading it by hand, making sure it doesn't cross. The part at the top that's like the aluminum foil, you can bend that and point that in any direction. I pointed it away from the heat, kind of away from the exhaust manifold, away from the cats. Then it's got that initial clip that the wire seats into right there. On the driver's side, there's an additional clip as you work your way down. It's going to be impossible to film all this, but there's another clip right there. Then it comes down and slides into this transmission bracket right here. That's your wiring connector. Passenger side is the same thing. You just have to get access to this little triangle to be able to work on it in there. So sorry for the poor lighting, but when you do this, you'll see exactly how it goes. It's not so bad. Same thing with the wire. This one has some different brackets, some different clips over here that it has to go in. You'll see it as you do it. And then there's a bracket that holds the exhaust on up there. It goes on top of that. You don't want to put the pre-cat oxygen sensor wire in between the cat and the exhaust bracket. It goes all the way on top against the vehicle heat shielding. Comes down inside of that clip right there on the right with the masking tape looking thing on it, and then plugs into the connector. So now that we've got all 4 sensors installed, I do not know a torque spec to it. I don't know how you would possibly go about torquing that with the exhaust system on the car. Good and tight is what I like to say. Put the 22 mil on there. I didn't use a hammer. I just kind of worked and gave it a good push, and that's as tight as we're gonna go. So for reassembly now, I'm going to install the heat shields that we removed over here with the 10 mil and the 8 mil. We're gonna put those back in. And then we've got a lot going on with this car, so we'll probably leave the rest of it disassembled for now. And that'll do it, guys. Go ahead and reset any codes if you had codes in the computer telling you to do it or not. We didn't specifically, but this car is getting atrocious gas mileage. So stuff like this can make the difference at 100,000 and change miles. Those sensors look like hell and did not owe us anything. So we've got fresh ones in. We're moving on to a lot more DIYs with this car. Fuel pump, fuel filter, fender liner, front bumper, repaint, pads, rotors, wishbones, alternator, belts. Yep, it's an E60 M5 at 100,000 miles. So thanks for watching this one, guys. We'll talk in the next E39 Source video. Take care.